What if being loved by millions slowly destroyed you, not because fame looked ugly, but because it looked beautiful? Because the image people wanted from you slowly replaced the person underneath it. That is the real horror at the center of Oshi no Ko. People think this anime is about idols, drama, or revenge, but what makes it hit so hard is much more unsettling. Oshi no Ko understands something brutal about modern fame. It does not just reward beauty, it turns young people into performances. It teaches them to survive through image control, and it slowly turns them into products. That is why this story feels so real. Because Oshi no Ko is not really asking whether fame is fake. It is asking what happens when attention becomes more important than truth. The world of Oshi no Ko is bright, beautiful, and addictive. But underneath that beauty, it is built on performance. Everyone is expected to sell a version of themselves. The idol must look available, but untouchable. The actor must appear natural while calculating every camera angle. The rising star must stay desirable, manageable, and easy to read for the audience. That is what makes the show so sharp. It does not treat fame as a reward. It treats it like a machine that constantly asks, what version of you will be easiest to market? And once that logic takes over, authenticity becomes dangerous. Real emotion becomes a liability.
Confusion becomes weakness. Vulnerability becomes content. That is why Oshi no Ko feels less like fantasy and more like a brutal version of the media world young people already live inside.
And young people are always the first to break under a system like this, because they are still building themselves, while the world is already trying to package them. That is the deepest cruelty in Oshi no Ko. It shows how image culture attacks identity before identity is even stable.
When popularity matters, appearance becomes pressure. When audiences demand intimacy, private feeling becomes labor. When parasocial desire grows, young people stop being treated like people. They become surfaces for strangers. That is why the series feels so current. Young people already live inside soft systems of performance. Profiles have to look right. Bodies have to look right. Opinions have to be timed correctly. Relationships become visible assets. And the more public life becomes, the more people start editing themselves in real time. Oshi no Ko takes all of that pressure and shows what it does to a generation that learns too early that survival depends on being consumable.
The genius of Oshi no Ko is that it does not only criticize fame, it also shows how hard it becomes to stay real inside a system built on performance. Ai matters because she is the contradiction. She understands performance better than almost anyone. She knows how to create love on command. She knows how to appear perfect. But the tragedy is that performance becomes the only language she has left to reach something real. That is what makes her so devastating. Aqua matters for a different reason. He shows what happens when a life becomes organized around image, memory, and unresolved emotional violence.
He does not just move through the entertainment industry, he uses it. And that is why the show feels more dangerous than a simple anti-fame story. It keeps asking whether a person can remain emotionally whole inside a world where every relationship is contaminated by spectators, career logic, or strategic desire. Once affection can be performed well enough, the real question is no longer who is honest. It becomes, can honesty survive inside a system built on attention?
That is why Oshi no Ko lands so hard now. We already live in a world where attention behaves like power. Platforms reward visibility.
Algorithms reward emotional intensity. Audiences reward access. And the people most exposed to that logic are often the youngest. The show understands that modern exploitation does not always look violent. Sometimes it looks like opportunity. Sometimes it looks like validation. Sometimes it looks like a dream finally opening up.
But underneath all of it, someone is still being shaped into a product. That is why the series is not just about idols or actors. It is about a society where image is no longer an accessory. It is becoming a condition of survival. And once that happens, love starts to look like attention. Worth starts to look like engagement. And the self starts to disappear behind performance. That is the real warning inside Oshi no Ko. Not that fame is fake, but that image culture can slowly eat inner life.
That is why Oshi no Ko feels so brutal. It understood that one of the darkest things a society can do to young people is teach them that being loved matters more than being whole. Because once image becomes survival, people stop asking who they are. They start asking what version of themselves will be accepted, desired, clicked, or adored. And once that happens, fame is no longer just dangerous. It becomes hungry. It eats privacy. It eats sincerity. It eats youth.
And maybe that is what makes Oshi no Ko so effective. It does not just expose a corrupt industry. It exposes a culture where attention can become emotional predation. Next time, we move from image hunger to survival hunger. Because Chainsaw Man is not just about violence. It is about desire, poverty, and how exploitation survives by learning exactly what people ache for.